Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Hi, Nancy Jean. How are you?
I'm fine, Terry, and how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Welcome everybody. I'm Terry at Holding Your Space, and of course, this is Nancy Jean from Nancy Jean's Garden,
Mm-hmm.
and we're here to talk about. Well, I got a little bit adventurous here today and said we were going to talk about the universal sun, but I think that's like a year-long episode.
Yeah, after
So,
I looked it up, I went, what? Whenever the word universal's in anything, guys, you kind of have to go, how can I bring this back to me? Because universal means all out
yeah, yeah, infinity,
there. Hmm.
infinity. So it's like
Infinity and beyond.
exactly, exactly. To quote the sage Buzz Lightyear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, say hi to a few people. Hey, Linda Frazier, how you doing? Sharon Sipe, good to see you. Jen Miranda, Prince Charming's mom. Hi, Karen Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And Teresa, one of the Teresas is here. Yay.
Good.
That's my given name.
Oh,
So I love that. I don't go many places that there's a lot of Teresas.
oh, yeah, I was born in the year of Nancy's. I
Oh,
mean, I never, from kindergarten on, there were three. I was in a 12-person kindergarten, and there were three kids in there with the name Nancy.
oh my gosh.
And it just kept up. It wasn't until I came to Texas that they kind of thinned out.
Wow.
It
Yeah.
was the most popular name in the year I was born.
It was it around Nancy Drew? Like, is that part
No,
of it
no,
or
no, no.
no? 'Cause
I have
that was
no idea.
really popular when I was growing
I
up.
have no idea.
Oh.
It's an Irish form of Anne or
Hmm.
Hannah. We're all come from that same root word. Maybe just a lot of the Irish immigrants finally had baby girls. I don't know.
Oh, well. Oh,
Oh
well.
well, not my
Yeah.
problem.
So, hi, Ingla. I have an Inga at home. Helena, hello. Liz and
Mhm.
Og, hello. I hope you're feeling better, honey. Liz hasn't been feeling well, so I'll
Oh,
sending her a lot of healing. And Prince Charming's mom, Danny Marie, Mimi. Hi, Mimi. Happy Easter. Yeah.
yep.
Happy holidays.
It's Easter Monday.
That's right. It is Easter Monday. I
Yep.
forget that always.
I grew up in a very Catholic town. We had Good Friday, we had whatever they called Saturday, which was generally get ready for Sunday. And then we had Easter Sunday, and we did a lot of those sunrise services and stuff. I did not do those sunrise services.
We used to live in Florida and I would go to the sunrise service on the beach, but sunrise service in Kansas City, it's pretty, but it's not the
It's a
same,
lot like Chicago. You don't know if the sunrise is going to have snowflakes coming down with it.
right? Yeah. Yeah. You never know when you're buying
Hmm.
your dress or whatever you're going to wear, whatever.
And to all those people who had seizures over it was trans transgender day on Sunday. It's been transgender day on the 31st of March for years. Anybody whose shorts are in a knot because that fell on Easter, don't set your holidays by the moon.
Yeah. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it was also Maha Shivarasi, I think is how it's pronounced. It was a Hindu
Hmm.
festival
Yeah,
as well.
it hit everybody yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. So, which is cool. Aloha, Eliza. And Teresa Ford here is here. Another Teresa. Yay. Oh, loving this pick rainbow clouds, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
too. I'm loving the clouds right now and everything going on. So we kind of peeled it back. We're not going to do the entire universal sun, but
Because
um
we figure you all have lives and you might want to eat today.
yeah, it's not we're not going to go that far in. Yeah, people need to check their hate at the door, right, Teresa Ford? Definitely. Yeah, there's too much of that.
Yeah, people need to check their hate at the door. Excuse me, I
Whoop,
was turning your thing on so I could follow.
that's okay. And
The
Tyler is
dog heard
agreeing
you
it.
talking twice and figured something's going on.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot going on right now, and we also had some major solar flares,
Mm-hmm.
didn't we? This
Yes.
week and the weekend. So there's a lot going on. Oh, Eliza, there was a flock of girls named Janet in your kindergarten class. Yeah. Yeah. Many disappeared into the Catholic schools. I bet they did. Yeah.
Did you see Saturday Night Live?
No, but I watched a little blurb of it.
Well, they
Um,
showed the Marys opening the tomb.
no, they did not.
Yeah,
That's so
and
funny.
Donald Trump walked out.
Oh, no.
Well, he's hyping his Bible. What do you expect? But one of their comments was, maybe we ought to go form a group and find a new name other than Mary.
Yeah. There were a lot of Marys back then.
Yeah, but my best friend that I've known since I was 3, her name was Nancy. And because we were both named, I mean, you had to have a nickname. Her nickname happened to be Bucky, and I will not go into how she got that because it's incredibly racist. I thought it was funny, and I told my kids, and they go, Mom, never tell that to anybody. And anyway, but my nickname was off my maiden name. It was Ruts. All 3 of the oldest in my family. That was the nickname we got among our friends. But nicknames are, and it's so funny because they're the only people. When I call Bucky, I go, "Hi, Bucky, how's it going?" She goes, "I know it's you." I'm the only one left.
I love that, Bucky. That's a great nickname. Yeah, I was too tall or TJ or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but there weren't that many Terrys back then. So
No.
I was good, or Teresa's really. Um, so talking about the energy coming in, and
Mm-hmm.
I know you've been doing some channeling
Right.
with Hogarth, and you're going to do that tomorrow.
I'm going to do the introductory. He told me he's going to try to help us walk through it. Hogarth is my ley line tree. And I found him through the universe basically had to create a ley line, turn the grass completely yellow up to his root system, and then like a straight line through him and out the other side before I realized, oh, that probably is a ley line tree. And that's when he started talking to me. But yeah, I've been going out. I went out at the equinox, and he said, and he was not covered with. He gets these on his little lumpy bumps. He gets these green shoots, and there was just a few on him. And I said, "Oh, you don't have many shoots." He said, "Come back tomorrow, on the equinox." So I came back the next day after the equinox had been that night, and 3/4 of his trunk was covered with these green things. And I said, and it all of a sudden struck me. He was showing me so fast, and I said, "You mean all the blossoming out we're going to do and all of the growing we're going to do," which I've sensed really hard with the eclipse coming. And I said, "So fast," and he said, "Just that fast." So if you're in that roller coaster ride, make sure your seatbelt's fastened.
Yeah, I think part of it helps knowing that it's coming,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people these days are worried about other people, and those that don't know and how they're going to be handling it. But I feel like just us being calm around them
Mm-hmm.
is going to be huge. Having
And
somebody that they can talk
not
to.
to be judgmental on their fear, because we all live for most of the time with certain amounts of fear, and that's what they're responding to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Um, so yeah, it's going to be a lot of energy coming in, and there'll be well, I can go into what they showed me. Do you want me to go
Okay.
first, or you
Yeah,
want to go
you
first?
go first.
Okay. Okay. So I did um, a pretty powerful channeling before I came on today, and I was channeling earlier, but this is my bracelet that I wear when I'm on with you, Nancy Jean,
Mm-hmm.
because I usually get a huge download right before. So they're showing me it's a Merkaba, right?
Right.
So they're showing me basically the pyramid and
No,
how
it's a pyramid and it's not. I'll show you. I actually have a Merkaba here. Speaking of,
I used to. I
it's
think,
not easy to see because it's white.
yeah,
If you look closely, you can see it's sort of a triangle and triangle. It's like you take the two triangles and smush them together.
yeah,
It's the end of the solids in sacred geometry.
yeah. So there's light coming through this golden light, and
Mm-hmm.
this golden light reminds me of like Buddha, Jesus consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
so Christ consciousness, but it's this big awakening and transformation that's coming in, and it's like it's not just fifth dimension. When we talk about the fifth dimension coming in, it goes
Mm-hmm.
much higher than that. It fluctuates. It's just like right now we're fluctuating between third and fifth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the top of the pyramid is a filter. So when you think about Egypt and how they worked with healing in the pyramids and whatnot, and under the pyramids, and the top, that's where the light came in, and that was the healing chamber down there. Well, now on top of that, there's another pyramid going up. So and that is funneling in that golden light.
Mm-hmm.
So that top fluctuates, opening and closing to help filter it. But
Mm-hmm.
they're also talking about when that comes in, because when they were showing me that, I was getting like a huge download in my crown chakra, and it was kind of heavy. And they were showing me that you can put a filter there, and it's the filter for you, what makes sense for you. Like if
Mm-hmm.
it's red or if it's blue. And they even showed me some milk glass that was really pretty and really softening,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of reminds me of our picture behind us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and it says that we can, that's like time jumping. We can jump up and we can jump down through it. Um, so we can jump between the two, but the in between is what's important.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, top and bottom. It doesn't have to be hard. Imagine floating above it on a
Mm-hmm.
sea of energy or water. So when they were showing it to me, it's like you're up above it and you can just relax and float in it. Um, Filtering out the rays until we are ready. It can be an oppressive power from Earth cultures that couldn't handle it. And they were showing me that this is what happened with Atlantis and Lemuria, some of the Aztecs and the Mayans. It was too much power all at once. And they were using those crystals as well. So it has to do with earth crystals, Atlantas, and ley lines. So the ley lines all intersect to these points as well. And it's not just the pyramids, it's also the mountains or pyramids where certain things intersect. There's an energy pyramid where ley lines intersect. So your trees,
Mm-hmm.
Annie Baird talks a lot about the hollow bone. And I think that this is another conduit. Um, this continues into infinity. So that Merkaba on top of Merkaba on top of Merkaba, it's like the helix. It's our DNA of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And hands of rulership as axis power points. Exactly, CC 99. Exactly. Um, and she noticed the blue crisscross as well. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Ages ago, a friend called me tilt-a-wheel. Linda says. I love that. So, and they're talking about how they've given us a Maserati and we're
Mm-hmm.
just riding a bike right now. So be really gentle with yourself with all this energy coming in. You don't have to own it right away. You can put in some milk glass. You can call in all your angels.
Mm-hmm.
You can call in your guides. Yourself from above and
Mm-hmm.
then watch yourself from below. And they were talking about observing. Are you the observer or the observed?
Mm-hmm.
And these are the different dimensions coming in. Um, and they said kids are going to do this like they're just playing. I
Yeah,
mean, this is just kind of their
they
thing,
do it. They come and they tell us about it all the time.
right? Yeah, they said make it fun. It's like a honeycomb design, sacred. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I was telling Nancy Jean about this, because I was like, is this too weird to tell people? This
She
download.
asked me. I don't think it's too weird to tell.
And I'll show you what she showed me, the Taurus,
Mm-hmm.
which do you want to explain this? Because you,
Okay. If you go through all the steps of sacred geometry, ultimately, we are all surrounded by a force field. Every stone I pick up has this field about it. Every person has this field about it. And then it grows out and grows out and grows out and grows out. It's called a torus, and I misspelled it for Terry, and she found it anyway. It's Torus. And it's the ultimate energy field that we get into when we get into our complete consciousness. And picture yourself standing in the middle of that field. And if you do any of the heart math work, they talk about the Taurus all the time. And the energy flows around us. And, it's kind of how I begin to build a force field around me that keeps me protected from other things. If you're an empath, memorize this shape. Learn how to put it around yourself so you can block people from just intruding in your life. I mean, you have your skills and abilities, but they don't have to be on 24/7 or you'll burn out. So if you can learn how to understand this shape, if you can meditate yourself into understanding, feeling all that energy, because what it does is it massages your energy, your energetics, and you can even put a filter in. So I can filter when I want to know what's going on around people and when I don't, because after being locked down in COVID for so long, the first time I went into a grocery store, it was almost like I walked into a fun house. There was so much energy. And this is a grocery store, guys. So much energy in this store pumping around me. And I was like, whoa. So,
well, when I got the download, there was so much energy pumping around me. And I was just like,
that's what it was. You were standing in the middle of the Taurus, and you can bring it in and say, and learn how to protect it. If it looks a whole lot like what you think water does in a washing machine, it's kind of true. The energy circulates around you, and you can just you can choose. You can set up your own energetics so you don't get overwhelmed by it.
yeah. And sometimes when I think of sacred geometry, like my favorite part of it is um, the flower, the flower of life.
This is like the flower of life in 360 all dimensions, like fourth and fifth dimensions.
Yeah. So and that makes it a little more pliable for me, or a little softer
Mm-hmm.
for me. If I think of all, it's just flowers, you can change the language and change the story. Just like changing the story of what we label things and
Mm-hmm.
constructs. So, oh, Jen says, I've been doing this since I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. I never knew what this was. I would just move out of my body and felt or knew that someone else was thinking and felt familiar. Right.
Right.
And Spirit Detector is saying, is that the same energy that some of us feel?
I presume so. I mean, since I can't jump into your body, nor will I ever, I don't let them jump into me. So I don't go around looking for that. Uh, but if think about if you energetically stripped all that away and you were just a raw set of nerves reaching out into the world without your comfy Taurus blanket.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'll feel a lot. You'll feel a lot of different things, but it should for the most part be comforting if those are the thoughts you're allowing in.
Yeah, and that's been a huge message for a long time. They were talking about um, cleaning up, cleaning everything, and that's kind of the astrology. What that's been, right? Is clearing out the old. And
And
a
this
lot.
is a
Oh,
perfect season to discuss this because retrogrades are a perfect time to clean. The power of a retrograde is to relook at, rethink, redo, reestablish. And so if you do that during retrogrades, since they already named the day so you understand now's the time to do it, easiest time to clear your closet out. You won't have second thoughts about what you no longer need. That can also happen if you're working with your energetic body now. To Jen, who just sort of came in knowing, that means you came in with a mastery point a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean you don't need to work at it or you should abuse it, but it just means once you become aware of it, you become even more aware of your ability to master things.
Well, I think it was you, Nancy Jean, that told me that you made a thing, a deal, kind of, with your guides or everybody, that when you came in, you do this, but there were some caveats that you
Oh,
needed.
yeah. Yeah, I don't channel. I don't physically channel. I'm not, I don't want to step aside and let somebody, because I've actually been through an experience where that happened. It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I was a college freshman, and I was in my dorm room, and I was talking to two women who were my close, the close college friends you have that you never see again. And I was sitting on the bed with my back to the wall. And the next thing I knew, I was like a little Buddha figure. And I was like, I don't know how far away, but there's a little silver cord that connected to the back of my back. And I went, no, I want to be there. I don't want to be here. I want to go back in and be where I am. And I remember it seemed like a long argument. I don't know how long it really was, but the next thing I knew, I was accelerating forward. My sense was I was like riding in so fast, and I hit my body and went boom, and I was back where I was supposed to be. And there were two little freshmen in college with their mouths going, "What the hell was that?" But they were told by who'd ever walked in that they could never talk to me about what they saw. And I said, well, now I'm insulted. You borrowed my body and I don't even get to know about it. And it was years later, I tracked one of them down and I said, what the hell happened? And they said, it was all stuff about us. It was about one of them having been with the guy she was dating at the time and he was bad news. She needed to get away from him. And the other one was that it told her that her husband would fall in love with me. And this was years and years later. And in actual fact, after they got married, the first year they were married, he came and made a pass at me. He was not in love with me. He was just a jerk. But, and I said, Paul, you're a nice guy. Go home. You got a wife. Go home. And they said it was a woman in a long Victorian dress with the whole hat and the deal.
Whoa. That gives me the shivers. I love that.
So after that, a couple of years later, I kind of remember, I always remember the little Buddha floating in the wall. And it was very peaceful out there. I will tell you, when you get out into universal energy, it's very peaceful. It's just, unless you're being gracious and say, please borrow my body, which I was not in the mood for, I guess it could be a nice thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I started doing trance channeling when I was quite young. There was somebody guiding me, a spiritual advisor that was helping with our school of metaphysics. But I don't trance channel anymore. I keep space when I channel. Eliza has an important thing to say. Yes, filter is important. I have a Faraday cage, which catches the energies and grounds them. The pattern of the cage is set by the guides.
Oh, cool.
That's so cool. You know, what's funny is for 2 years, and if you've been on my channel, you know this, I've been talking about water filters. Get your water filter, water filter, water filter. Dang, if that's not the filter that they're showing too, the same thing. So I thought that was really interesting. There's another interesting thing, spirit detective. Is that the same energy? Oh yeah, we already said that. And is a frequency antenna associated with the Taurus? Taurus. It just
sounds like, that's why it gets mixed up with the astrologic sign.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what a frequency antenna is.
I think, okay. So it's kind of the symbol for infinity too, isn't it? Or do you think it is? Do you think it's different than infinity? Like, I feel like what they were showing me, that double helix, is
Mhm.
like the DNA. And when you add them all up, they're everywhere. I feel like this is a personal one.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Well, I'm trying to figure out what I think. I'm trying to get an image of it.
Okay. Oh, here, I can post it back up.
Okay. Oh, that's a Taurus. I don't think that's, I've never heard it called frequency antenna. I could be totally wrong. Lord knows that would not be the first time today. Um, it's,
That's what the yogis say, you guys.
okay. Well, that's, since I don't know too many yogis, not the bear one or the other kind, um, that's probably very true. And if,
Oh, no, I meant the yogis say, I don't know.
oh,
I could be wrong.
well, it's because if you've lived lots of lives, you've been wrong so many times. It's just,
Yeah.
I'd rather say I don't know. What's it called? Frequency antenna?
Yeah.
Well,
Her guides told her that she's a frequency antenna years ago.
okay.
I think we all are, spirit detective. I love that.
Frequency is okay. It's not a metaphysical one. It's basically you moderate the waves that go through your lives. Um, I don't see why not.
Yeah. I mean, everything in the universe has a frequency.
Uh huh.
We've talked about that before, like different plants have different frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
different animals have different frequencies. Definitely, angels have different frequencies, right?
Oh
Um,
yes. Mm-hmm.
so yeah, and so do different ley lines, the way they interconnect. And now,
They have different powers. They have them all defined, and they when they first had them, they were ley lines and they were one thing. And if you've read the history of the people who've been following them for all this time, um, that I'll tell you, the first time I went out to stand in the ley line, and I kept saying, but how do I know where it is? And I could follow it with my little. Uh, you can do it with the dowsing pendulum. Am I on a ley line? Am I on a ley line? But if you're going to do it, and it's hopefully by its very nature, it's outside your house. You don't want a ley line in your house. They carry a lot of energy. It's kind of like a big cable that the universe has devised. But I kept saying, I know where it is. I know where it is. And so we had a quick frost a year ago, and I went out and looked at the tree. I thought it was a ley line tree, but I didn't know for sure yet. I was working on it. There's somebody who said start things little and try a little bit at a time. Yeah, because if I jumped whole both feet into Hogarth and what's going on out there, I'd have gone nuts. But I went out after the frost, and there was this yellow line, and it ran straight from the west, straight underneath Hogarth's roots, and straight out to the east. It didn't touch the ley line. Didn't touch another tree. Hogarth is the only tree out there that has the telltale burl signs on them. And I, one time I was saying to Hogarth, well, it sure took me long enough to find you, the ley line. And he said, they painted it on the grass for you. What more do you want? And I have pictures of and I talked to a man who's lived here. I've only lived here 3 years. I talked to a guy who's lived here a long time, and he walks his dog out there. And I said, what happened to that yellow grass that we had a year ago? He said, I don't know. We'd never seen it before. It ran all the way down to the golf course and all the way over into the creek.
wow, that's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Mary's asking, taking training wheels off carefully so that I learn the lesson and able to complete the chore today. Let everything I do be for the highest good of myself and the highest good of others.
That's true.
That's beautiful, Mary. That is the T-shirt or tattoo of the day for sure. I love that. Oh, and I think this is what you already read. It can be intense, and they say I will get used to it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it all is intense, isn't it? Um, Linda's saying in the mid 1970s, I could go outside my body and my body would speak up to 14 languages, some dead languages. I frequently astral travel during sleep. So a warning, you all may get a visit.
Well, as long as you stay on the outside speaking the 14 languages, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That it is fun to visit, isn't it? I do feel like a lot of us get together in our sleep and our dreams. Um, just like we get together here in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, would you like to talk about what you brought in to talk about?
Okay. When I started reading about the universal light and the golden sun and all that stuff, I started looking at the topic because that's what Teri wanted to go, and I'm like, oh, that's an awful lot to deal with in a short period. So I thought, well, I always find it's best in dealing with metaphysics if we start with what personally affects us. Just it's kind of the standard. Let's start here and move forward. So, and I was getting ready to decide how I'm going to deal with doing my Hogarth journals for the day and stuff. And I heard, you remember, you were contacted, you were taken to the edge of the universal light. And this is a true story. I was sitting here right where I am right now, but a little over 2 years ago. It was like in February, March, and you'd think such a marvelous day, you'd remember it, you write it down somewhere. I'm not good at that. Thank God they gave me a birth certificate, or we'd have no idea how old I am. So I was sitting here in my chair, and all of a sudden, everything felt different, just extremely different. I felt lifted up out of my chair. I mean, I was touching everything I was touching in the physical world, but I wasn't. It was like sitting sort of in a world full of jello, but just being supported by it completely. And I said, where am I? And they said, we've come to explain to you, you have to quit worrying about being alone. You're never alone. This is who you are. This is what you are a part of. This is where your energy is a part of. And you're educated enough now to understand this. And they told me that we're all connected to everything. And when I looked up from my desk, I was looking out at my computers and at my wall beyond and the red couch that has boxes built up on it right at the moment. So that's got to get out of here. But they were not there. But I could see all the galaxies and all the stars and all the clouds of dust and all the energetics moving between each other. And I could feel like it was moving in me at the same time. And it said, remember, you're never alone. And that was my primal shadow fear of being abandoned, being left alone, being alone. I mean, there was times I didn't go to a movie on my own until I was in my 30s, and I didn't learn to eat out on my own happily till I was in my 60s. I mean, doesn't mean I wouldn't go grab a burger somewhere, but to plan like I'm going to go treat myself to a nice meal and I'm going to go here, that would just never have occurred to me because I couldn't be alone.
Yeah.
I had to have another being to be anchored to. And so I sat there and I went through a whole dialogue in my mind about what I was seeing and what I was hearing. And I was just like, well, this is kind of marvelous. And it was almost like I was afraid to breathe. I was afraid to move. I was afraid my phone was going to ring and, take me out of this place. And it didn't. I have no idea how long I was in that state because I sit downstairs in my office for hours at a time. So my kids wouldn't notice. They're just, yeah, she's down there doing her thing. But when I said, this is going to end. And they said, no, it will never end because now you know. So if you get to that point, guys, doesn't mean you're not going to have your bad bitchy days. Doesn't mean you're not going to binge on news, even though it's hitting you in the face and you're going, oh my God, how stupid is this? because I'm still a human. But for the first time ever, I realized that my connection to being here and being anywhere in the universe is I am a spirit in a human body. And the human body has gotten sick since then, has been hurt since then. Um, and I think that's one of the reasons why my body pisses me off so badly, because it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And when I get too exposed to the ley line energy that's out around Hogarth, I have trouble breathing. But you were talking about the yogic space between the two triangles. Well, I have triangles on my desk. I can
Yeah, this is awesome.
So this is your base triangle, which has all the chakra signs in it. And this is the little energy from above. That little space in between that they call the yogic space. I think the closest thing I can relate to that in any activity I participate in is meditative breathing, mindfulness breathing. And when you breathe in, that's actually called inspire. And when you breathe out, you expire. Okay. And then they'll tell you to breathe in, hold it for 4 seconds, then breathe out, hold it for 4 seconds or as long as you can, until if you're me, you pass out at like 4. But that little window in between is the part the universe gives us, that we're in control of the energy that runs us. Think about it. The first thing you do when you're born is breathe in. That's when you're separated from your mother. And I was taught in my church that that's when you were born. And since then, they've gone all sorts of funky ways. But it's really when the baby, when you breathe on your own, and you are going to be attached to this body to be in this sensory sphere until you quit breathing. So you're breathing, that little yogic pause between your breaths is really important to try and get in touch with, because that's when you are most in touch with your spirit.
Yeah, the in between. Yeah, it's the and in the Vedas, a lot of times they'll call that the gap, the space between light, the space between sound, the space between thoughts. And it's supposed to be the place where we can manifest too.
It's where you're freest.
Yeah.
Because your spirit at that point, it's really in spirit. It's inspired, right? It's inspired to your body and expired from your life. So.
Yeah. Ananda. Yeah. That's a beautiful state of being. And I feel like I glimpse it, and then, a thought comes in, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine, because this is why a lot of times people will have a mantra, because if a thought comes in, you can just repeat your mantra silently or out loud, whatever works for you, and it kind of just brings your attention back. It doesn't have to mean anything, the mantra. It just brings your attention back to where it needs to be. So Eliza had a unique astrology teacher who visited his students after a workshop. His presence at 3 a.m. woke you up. That is unique.
I've taught people in spiritual things. I've taught tarot. I've never taught astrology because I've taken a course in it. As far as I know, Helen never visited us. But I think, to me, I don't go into any other people's spaces unless I'm invited.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to teach people when you're reading cards. If they want to know what their low down dirty ex is doing, I always tell them to get on their phone and call, because that's not my job.
Yeah. Yeah. Liza said she told him if he wanted to visit next time, he had to ask.
Yeah, Helen would have been a short-lived astrologer. Anybody who comes and visits me, except Cecil, my dragon, and I don't have much control over that. The elementals want me to participate with them. That's the only way they get my attention.
Yeah. Yeah. I will do remote views on occasion, but I always ask for permission. I do the heart-centered method. and that makes me feel okay about it. Mostly, I go into situations like, what is this going to look like? But anyway,
Well, remote viewing, when I didn't know what it was called, but when I was a teenager, I found out if I concentrated on a place, I could write out a complete description of it, you know?
yeah,
And so I had a roommate in college. This is how to lose roommates. If you ever end up in a roommate situation, you want to get rid of them. Remote view into their life. They won't like it much. I remote viewed into this girl, and she lived in Memphis. And I described her bedroom. I described how she'd go down this hallway. I described things that were in her house. And then I told her that I went in the main living room, and there was a beautiful portrait of her mother in a formal gown hanging over the fireplace. And she said, well, that's screwed up because it's not there. And I said, no, I think it is there. And I described the dress, and I said, I really clearly see this. Well, this was right before Thanksgiving. So she went home for Thanksgiving. And while she'd been at college, her parents had had this portrait done of her mother, and it was hanging over the fireplace. And when she walked in to her living room, she said it took every ounce of her body to not scream because it was there. And all she did, she said, you ruined my Thanksgiving. And I said, why? And, you know, I'm an 18-year-old kid. And
yeah,
she's like, well, you know, I don't want you messing. I said, I won't ever go near you. You asked me to do something to prove to you that I could do what I said I could do. And she asked for a new roommate.
yeah. I bet she did. I
Well, I
mean,
would too, but you know, I didn't. I mean, it's really important if you find a young person who's somewhat skilled that you quietly try to get through to them what they should and should not do.
yeah,
I mean, I watch some young readers and I'm like, do you really want to put it that way? Because
yeah,
we read, guys, trust me all the time, when we're reading questions in chat, we'll see the answer you need to hear that you can understand at that point in time. But we sometimes get the long-term play, and it might not be what you're ready for that day. Or it might be, I don't want to promise them something that they can't possibly get.
right. Yeah, yeah. So I just want to say hi to Sharon Sipe. Hey, dear. Pisces Greeter is here. So we have moderators, all sorts of lovely moderators. Celtic Seer, Sun Psychic Jean, Dr. Gail, lots of readers here today. Fatima, Rossi. So welcome everybody. And yeah, it's important to have boundaries and to have courtesies. It's just like table manners, isn't it? So, yeah. Julie, another reader, says, Nancy Jean, I believe that what you did was a little more than that somehow. Is actually quite remarkable.
Well, all things have their limits, and I do have a part of my mind that filters stuff, you know, because I'm not infallible. I don't believe the Pope, which they're now saying will not have another Pope. So now we'll have another yeah. I don't know why, because it's got something to do with the changes, this astrologic changes you're going through right now.
Well, that's quite interesting. You know, they couldn't really control this Pope either because there's a lot of very conservative. Anyway,
Oh, he's cutting off their pensions. There was a bishop here in Texas, and he took him out of his bishopric, whatever they called it, his chair, his seat.
Yeah.
And he kept going. I mean, he's very, very anti-gay. He's very, very MAGA. And they disciplined him. And then I read a month ago or so that they've taken his pension away. But it said, if you continue to do this, we're not going to pay you the pension. Well, I haven't heard anything from him since. But that's what they did to Father Coughlin, the Catholic priest from Canada that was a fascist, and he had the largest radio following before World War II. And he was, I mean, I've heard what he said. And basically the Pope, once World War II started, they told him he could go on as he was, but he would have no support from the church. And so it came down to, do I have a nice old age, or do I stand around homeless at the end of the Depression with my little white collar? And he decided to take the money and run.
Mm, yeah. Well, yeah. Now we do have two popes alive at the same time. Yeah, very unusual. Julie says ethics and a commitment to do no harm are helpful to ourselves and others, right? And I'm glad you brought that up, Jules, because it's like there's so many ways to say that. Most beneficial outcome for the goodness of all concerned. I want this from the universe or something better. You know, always that caveat there that you can get something. Yeah.
My theory always, well, when I was in politics, it was, if what I'm thinking would squash them like a bug, would I do it? I never squashed them like a bug.
Yeah. Yeah. But so that's interesting because you can always I know one of my techniques when I was taking this course about how we name ourselves and we name others, like if this person was an abuser and you were a victim, or and you rewrite the whole story and you rewrite the label, and you can write it that you this person is blah 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 blah, f whatever, and you are highly intelligent and standing in your power. So it does make a big difference when you put it like that. But sometimes we need to do that.
Well, there's an archangel, Zadkiel.
Yes, I love him.
And I have a book by a psychic, and it's kind of how he fixed his life. But at one point, he had old friends that kept coming back that were from before he was more enlightened.
Yeah.
And he really wanted them to go away. But he's such, I know him now personally. He's such a kind-hearted person. He could never say, get the H out. So what he did is he left it in Zadkiel's hand. He meditated and said, I'm going to leave you in their hands. And because Zadkiel is also the archangel of forgetfulness.
Oh, I need that, man.
And and what he said happened was the next holiday, that was the one they celebrated for 10 years together, he didn't get the call. And he didn't even realize till after the holiday that he hadn't heard from him. And after that, he never heard from them again. So if you have someone you want to have forget you, so you don't have to deal with them, and you can try that.
Wow. Yeah. 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 Everybody's talking about Pope Benedict and that he is, I think it's Pope Benedict that's retired.
Yeah.
And we don't really hear about him.
No. He said that was part of his bargain about going away.
Oh.
And he also was having real bad mental decline. Not unlike other people we could think of, but he had the good graces to retire. So
yeah. Yeah. He's out of sight. Linda asks, what do you two think of this? Do serial killers and pedophiles choose to be that? Or are they always that in each incarnation?
No. Every time you make a choose to hurt another person, you're making the conscious choice to hurt another person. And it's not to fulfill their fate, so they get to feel guilty for the rest of their lives. It's, you came in with a series of options. And I can go here and I can go there. It's not written in stone that we're going to be good or we're going to be evil. It's just written in stone that at some point we'll run into those people again. And we'll have an option.
Yeah. It's that's a hard one, Linda, because that's run through my family. Not the serial killers, but the sexual abuse. And it can be ancestral in a way. When
it's also a family pattern. It's how they deal with their tensions and their whatevers. And
yeah.
And It's like somebody there. There's a really awful show. Do not go look for it. It says it's something like How to Build a Psychopath or Psychopaths on Trial or What Creates Their Minds. Anyway, I just thought, well, I'll see. Oh, Pope Benedict passed. We missed the boat, Teri. Um, so much for my Catholic knowledge. But in this, it was a woman who was a psychopath, and it ends up they could identify at least 3 bodies on her property where she lured men in and then done all kinds of hideous things. And it ends up when the prosecutors were putting her for trial, they found out she'd had that in her family, that someone had been incredibly cruel to her as a small child. But as the prosecutor who tried the case said, I know a great many people who went through similar horrific experiences who didn't choose to do that. And he said, when I try someone for that, it's because in this life, at this time, they chose to go kill those other people.
Yeah. I think we can overstep our soul contracts, and I think this happens. But I also feel like for me, and I call them effing growth opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of growth opportunities, and
Mm-hmm.
it has made me who I am. Do I want my children to go through that? No. Do I want anybody else on the planet to go through that? Never.
Mm-hmm.
No. But that healing, once we heal from it, we heal our descendants as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's one of those things, Linda. It's really hard, all the ways. So yeah. Yeah, who would choose that as their life contract? I think what we choose on the other side, for me, I think I was type A. And I said, I want to dump, 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 dump. I checked all the boxes. I was like, okay, you're gonna learn all these great things. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh. Either that or I was too hard headed. So they really had to do something to get me going. Yeah. Yeah. Um, right. And there are so many corruption in the top corporations, churches, and government today. Pluto and Capricorn is bringing this issue up big time in early Aquarius to be fixed. Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be that chaos coming in, Celtic Seer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is going to change. I mean, a lot of us have seen that for a long time, haven't we? Um, that um, that the corruption is going to be changed. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's going to come back to a community, but it's going to take a little bit. But people are going to start seeing it.
I think people are already seeing it.
Yeah, but not everybody. Some people think that.
Okay, look at Sierra Leone, and I hope it works out the way it looks like it is. Sierra Leone has had a tin horn dictator for 10 years. And once he got in, he seemed like a good guy at first. He got in there, messed everything up, and then everybody who ran against him disappeared or ended up in jail. You know the stories. Anyway, the people had massive rioting last year. And so this year they had another election. And last week, the properly elected guy was put in his position. The other guy backed off.
Wow.
And one of the things I think might have been going on there was Prigozhin, the guy who was the Russian, worked for Putin, had his little army, and the one who stormed Russian was going to stop him because he was killing his men in Ukraine, and then stupidly backed away. I mean, if I was that guy, you just either keep going, honey, or you're going anyway. And then he went for a little plane ride and shooting. Putin shot the plane out of the air.
Oh yeah.
And Putin said that they didn't. That was not. It was an accident in the plane. Well, security cameras all around the country saw the little missile going up to the plane. So that not so much. But this regime that was in Sierra Leone had been heavily supported by the Russians. And all of a sudden, the guy says, "Nope, I've had enough. This isn't going to go on," which means his army couldn't get paid for anymore. Something happened. But a new good guy from the view of the outside world got put into place to be the president. And And then in Nigeria, where they've been kidnapping kids out of schools, they're letting them all go home. They're giving the kids back. So there are changes happening. You just don't hear about them.
Yeah, there's also a couple of new groups over there too that are helping with things. There's some
Mm-hmm.
new philanthropy that's come
Mm-hmm.
in to help with the kids in the spaces. So Jen's packing for Arizona, her magic place. Celtic Seer chaos is already underway.
Yes.
It is definitely underway. Sally Rod's follow-up question, Terry, regarding abuse and other such challenges. I have a hard time resolving that as a choice one would make. I'm with you on that, Sally. It is hard. Um, and it's often a choice that's they didn't have as a child. One of my friends, I'll just say this about it, and then I won't say any more because there's nothing good out of it. She went to get her psychology degree, and she went into the prisons and was talking to somebody there, and he had done this to somebody, and he was serving time. And she said, and he told her, he said, the only time in my life that I was shown love was when somebody was abusing me. That's
That's true. I've heard people say that they'd rather be slapped than ignored.
yeah, because neglect is worse than abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Now, um, be that as it may, I'm never going to say that it's a good choice.
No.
No, it's a horrible choice.
Ultimately, it appears to be a choice in their life. I think circumstances just line up, and they could take another direction, but the easiest one is to fall into the most destructive one.
Yeah, yeah. Your mother forgot due to her teen year, Eliza says, the agreement with me to help me teach how to work with family talents. She forgot that I needed help, and she had no reserves to help. Yeah,
That's true.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of times the generation of our parents, depending on your age, mine were in the Holocaust and the Depression in the United States. So, um, yeah, being the one abused, right? Yeah, we don't. We don't. So that's like a whole nother show that needs a shaman
That's a whole nother
and
shadow show.
yeah, a shaman and lots and lots of healing. Yeah. But did they sign up? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that in another show because that is so important. And anybody that has listened to Rebecca or not Rebecca, Rachel Grant, sorry, on my channel, she has written a book on this and not
Mm-hmm.
the spiritual part of it, but she doesn't not look at the spiritual part. Eliza says Pluto reaches into the muck of a swamp of emotions long buried and brings them up to the light in the air. Yeah, that's definitely what we need right now.
I was told that's why Pluto has that little plow. He's a P with a little end on him. That's his plow where he just goes through and rakes everything up.
Yeah. And I like that you're saying that, Linda, because I feel like a lot of us feel like we've been through things and we've healed, we've done all this work, we've been to therapy, perhaps we've done the healing techniques and cut the cords, and then all of a sudden this little memory will pop up, and you're like, and you're like, what was that all about? And so there's might be one fractal of your soul somewhere where you didn't know what to say about something,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of just hid that. You disassociated that fragment of your soul.
That's what it's be patient and kind to yourself. Same issue.
Yeah.
Um, that one of the things that Hogarth said that a lot of the fast changing that's going to happen to people is how they view themselves, and you just kind of have to get that ego that says no, that you don't deserve. We're going to be doing a whole lot of shadow work all of a sudden.
Yeah. And that I love that this was brought up, and we're almost at time. But because I do feel like that ego is so important, and that's part of the third dimension. That
Mm-hmm.
that's not huge like that. This is this side of the veil, that limited belief system, and
Mm-hmm.
telling ourselves these stories, because we're divine light, like you said. That was what you saw. You're divine, and you're never alone.
And you're never alone, and you're never disconnected, and being in that state of grace had nothing to do with what anybody else thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took me a while to talk to people about it because I thought they'd take me off and try to give me pills to make me more realistic, but I'm too old now. They just write it off to senility, and I'm happy.
I love that. Fly your freak flag, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here, Eliza. That's a beautiful comment too, about Pluto. Like is like Venus with an arc, a rebirth person.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the best. That's a great way to look at it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, lots of triggers, and that's kind of like that energy tunnel that they were showing us and how it fluctuates. But you can move it around. You can get the radar and go into it and put in a filter system.
Mhm.
So yeah, we do need our wise shamans.
We'll just all go home and hug you up into your Taurus
Yeah, there you go. So we'll put that in, add that little guy to the stage.
and and say goodbye.
Okay, bye bye everybody. Thanks for being here. Thank you, moderator.